Hello, I'm Jason Solomons and welcome to another episode of Seen Any Good Films Lately. I've got some new reviews and recommendations for you, and we go back to '96 to ask, where were you while we were getting high?
It was like a calling to us as Oasis fans. It was that sort of moment in history where you had to be there.
My guest on this show is director Jake Scott, son of Ridley, but a hugely established pop video maestro and filmmaker in his own right. We trip down memory lane a bit to mark the release of Jake's first concert movie doc, Oasis Knebworth 96, Live Forever, cementing the mythology of the moment when 250,000 people came to watch Noel and Liam. We don the bucket hats and the attitude of summer 96 right after I tell you if I've seen any good films lately. Only one place to start this week, and that's with The Many Saints of Newark, your first must-see movie of the autumn season.
Gotta do something about Dickie Maltasani.
What a blow.
I know you can get anything.
Look at Dickie Maltasani. He steps up, takes care of his family, takes care of all the business.
If anybody tells anybody about this,
How you doing on your merit badges?
I want to do all kinds of good things.
It's the one thing. Pain comes from always wanting things. But what do I know? I'm a murderer.
I really like this. It's billed as a prequel to The Sopranos, conceived and written by that show's creator David Chase, and in a way it does chart the young life of Anthony Soprano, who's partly played by Michael Gandolfini, the actual son of the late Tony Soprano himself, James Gandolfini. But the best thing is, you don't really have to know any of that. It stands alone as a smashing little New York gangster movie. Yes, it's in the style of Goodfellas, with the voiceover and the lockups and the mistresses and the big meaty hands and the music and, yes, Ray Liotta. Okay, it's not as good as Goodfellas, but very few things are. But The Many Saints of Newark is a lovely wallow in the genre. It's set partly amid the Newark race riots of 1967. I remember these playing a part in Philip Roth's American Pastoral and the subsequent film of that novel. But here they're central to the action in many ways, being used as a cover-up for violence and as a boiling point for the racial tensions that play out not only on the streets but in the underworld too. And that's probably this film's ace card for me, the balance of white and black tensions, with Leslie Odom Jr.'s character representing a black element rarely considered in the mob movies we've seen before. Some of this is cleverly done by the music choices, where, for example, James Brown will fight to drown out Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, and they sort of battle with each other, one on the car radio, one in the garage radio. It's very good, and it happens quite often. Other huge pluses in this film are the details. The meatballs, the faces, the costumes. Oscar nomination ahead for Amy Westcott, I'm sure. The production design of the houses and the cars, it's all top-notch. And the career best performance of Alessandro Nivola as Dickie Maltasani is definitely worth watching. He brings this silk and steel to the main part. He's a wise guy and a nice guy, and they war away in his own head. And he's the uncle that young Tony Soprano looks up to. Now, if this film struggles slightly with not being a 6-part TV series, which it really could have been, there are still some terrific set-piece scenes in it and some great lines. For example, when the young Tony, already struggling with mental health issues, yells that he doesn't want any part of this, his father, played by John Bernthal, is left genuinely bewildered, standing in the street going, "What this? What this?" So if you like this, then this is exactly the sort of thing you'll like. It hits all the numbers. I came out doing the accent and wanting a big plate of spaghetti and meatballs. What do you want from a movie, huh? Now, for some different accents.
We were not grateful to anybody for anything. Oasis was us, In a sense, it belonged to the people. In a bigger sense, in a more important sense, it belonged to us. And they were there to see us. We weren't there to look at them. And that's what separated us from most bands. We flipped that "we are not worthy" on its head. But we are worthy. Enjoy it.
We go back to the summer of '96 to Britpop and football's coming home and Cool Britannia and a change in the air. It felt like a time, and it's now getting its nostalgic moment and self-mythologizing acclaim from those who were there, myself included, and the director Jake Scott, whose 1999 Highwayman film, Plunkett and McLean, was at the crest of the Brit film rise that happened just a few years later, probably as a result of the success of something like Oasis. Jake Scott was making videos with many of the leading bands of the era, from The Verve and Oasis and Radiohead and R.E.M., and he was a natural fit when they found all this superb footage of Oasis at Knebworth. Their concerts I remember not going to very well when many of my mates did, but I was a showbiz reporter at the time. I'd interviewed Noel and Liam many times at that point, and I'd seen them a couple of times. I went to see them in Dublin, and they were fantastic there too. An amazing live band with some electric chemistry between them. So, catching up with Jake in his LA office last week, I began by asking him why the time now was right for looking back, not in anger, but in fondness.
It's a significant date, isn't it? I mean, it's a quarter of a century. And as you say, we've gotten older. But in that quarter of a century, a lot of us have had kids who are now in their teens or even a little bit older. And just through my own kids, really specifically my daughter Fifi, she's a drummer and a guitar player and is really into her music. I've got one kid who's really into music. I'm so happy. And she's obsessed by 90s. All her friends, all of them, they're all obsessed by that mid-90s guitar bands, especially that period. So that does have a resonance. And it's a bit like when we were kids, you know, growing up, I was listening to sort of early 60s ska and, you know, and we got into the psychedelic thing, you know, and we did some revivals of it. And it does happen generationally.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. You know, I think it does. I think that's the right answer. And I was looking back. What your film started doing for me was then going back to trying to tell children, not that they like to listen, that, you know, that there was no mobile phones. That you know that it doesn't look like '96 in your movie. It looks almost like 1966. Some of it is so on the phone, you know. And I realised, my God, it really has changed in that 25 years. Perhaps more in the 25 years than it did before.
Absolutely right. And until you see it, you don't remember it that way, do you? Because we all had flip phones. That's what I remember. We had flip phones, Motorola's and Nokias, right? And then. But nobody used them. We didn't hold them up like we did a lighter. And so there isn't that interruption. There isn't that distraction. They're all completely engaged, the audience at Knebworth. They're singing along, but they're in it, and they're in it together. And there's a great sense of unity. And then, as I say, they're not distracted, you know.
Were you there?
No, I had a ticket and I couldn't go.
No,
I know. I'm gutted. I'm watching this thing. You know, I had a bloody ticket and I was stuck in Prague. And I couldn't go. Everybody else went.
Well, that's what I remember. FOMO. I remember and I think Robbie did Knebworth a couple of years later, a few years later, maybe. Yeah. And I went to that because I thought, it wasn't really my thing actually, but it was a great night. It was a great night at Knebworth. It was a really good night out. But the Oasis gig, they were electric. I did see them in Dublin. Was it there, Lansdowne Road or Cork Park?
Yeah.
Was it? And they were just fantastic as a band. And as someone says in your doc, you know, they're not, you know, they just stand there. There's blokes and guitars, a bloke on the drums and another bassist, and that's it. And that's all you get. And I think that's what was really hard to do in your film, to capture that and keep that going interestingly, because we're so used to sort of visuals now and rock docs that are so kind of cut up, and this one wasn't. It just showed the performance.
Yeah, I mean, the musicianship really stands up, you know, and they're all good, you know, and as Noel says, you're only as good as your front man, and he was at his best, you know. He's not a note wrong, and the band are tight, really tight, and they really deliver. That was very helpful, right? So there's not a bum note there. On top of which, you see the camaraderie between them both, the brothers. And also I've always called, rather pretentiously, called a symbiotic relationship between the crowd, the audience, and the band. But there is this sort of circular thing going on. I really had fun with Struan, the editor, digging into the antics on stage. And Liam is very funny. and the mucking about and the banter is just brilliant. I think
there's a little sequence where he's in the the buggy, and it reminded me of the banana splits. Do you remember those?
Yeah, no. It's funny because I actually said the same thing when we were looking at that footage. Should we put it in, or should we put it in? But it's so naughty and delinquent, but it's brilliant.
Yeah, really. I think it gives it a real charm to it. I think that the that time that you recreate, when I presume you recreated it. I don't know, you hired some mini Metros or whatever, you managed to get some sort of 90s looking phones or whatever. Those little bits were really interesting to recreate as the little sort of inserts that go with the memories of the fans.
Hopefully you don't notice it and you
Not at all.
buy that it's there.
I was thinking that you found this footage, but it can't because it matches their memories so perfectly.
No, we shot it and it's layered throughout the whole film. And it was just a way of making contact with the stories a little bit more deeply, you just a little bit further into it, a little bit more intimate with the individual stories, and also the mini Metro, the Metro and the phones, the flip phones and the CFAX and the redial button and the getting on the train and getting your tickets at the record shop, and all of that is an anomaly now, and we felt that hopefully kids see this, and to them it's amazing, that anyone ever got anywhere. But we did. I remember my preferred method of getting tickets was touts.
I love a tout.
I used to stand outside every venue. Go see the specials. My first time I saw the specials was a tout. So it was always a thing, wasn't it?
Liam is in this film, but he wouldn't give you any voiceover memories. No, it's all Noel, is it? Where are they at the moment?
I don't think Liam wanted to say much because he felt the film would speak for itself, and because he's so, obviously it's mainly his vocal in the film, and he's quite lively. I think he wanted to give it to his brother, really, and Liam does make one comment, and he was very aware of the film. He watched the film a couple of times. He had a few notes, nothing too difficult. They both are invested in it, but Noel I had in first, and before there was always this, maybe Liam will, maybe Liam won't, but Noel spoke so eloquently and at length and was very generous. I genuinely believe that Liam said, well, why do I need to talk? He said everything I would say, and Bonehead too.
I think that's probably how it always was, to be honest.
Yeah. I think everyone's looking for the fight, and I never got any sense of that. I think Noel says some lovely things about his brother in the film, and it was nice to hear.
It's amazing to remember how electric they were, and how how hot they were, and how meteoric they were. I forgot that in 2 years they were playing in front of, from the Water Rats to 125,000 people. I forgot, and I was there covering most of it and talking to them, and just couldn't remember how amazing.
And that's what's amazing. And I always think, my mate James Gay Reese produced the Supersonic. Yeah. I have Supersonic to thank for wanting to do this film, and then when I came onto this, I was blessed with this incredible footage that I had nothing to do with, so this amazing eyewitness account of Knebworth 96, and brilliantly shot and covered by that crew.
What were they going to do with the stuff anyway? What was just always going to lie about?
Set in an archive. Yeah. They always knew they were going to do a live album because they had such good recording. And as I understand it, they'd always spoken of doing this concert film. There was a sort of rough assembly done way back that was, I think you saw segments of it in Supersonic. But Supersonic really ends where this, it really ends at Knebworth, and then this is, you could almost say this would be the follow-on film, the sequel. That this is, so anybody that hasn't seen Supersonic, see Supersonic before you see this.
Yeah, it makes sense. You're introduced to the characters first. Absolutely, yeah, exactly. Classic stuff. What was the first film you saw in the cinema, Jake Scott?
Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Odeon Leicester Square.
Oh, you started at the top.
Yeah, Odeon let us to Square, and we went to see Chitty Chitty Bang Bang because my dad, I think it was my dad who took us, and we wanted to go see the Railway Children. I think this is what happened. Thank God it wasn't the Railway Children, but I think it was that was what happened. And we ended up at Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. That was my first, that's my first memory of going to the cinema.
Yeah, well, that's what we wanted, yeah. And then it affects you forever, I guess.
Yeah.
As you said, if thank God it wasn't the Railway Children, you probably run screaming from the train. I think they both
Ian Fleming.
They both got Lionel Jeffries in it, haven't they, as well?
Both got P.O.S.H. Yeah.
See, and you enjoyed yourself.
What an unusual car.
Daddy made it.
Oh, and it actually goes.
It's called Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
That's a curious name for a motor car.
But that's the sound it makes. Listen. Chitty Bang Bang, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Chitty Bang Bang, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Chitty Bang Bang, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Oh, you pretty Chitty Bang Bang, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. We love you and our pretty Chitty Bang Bang, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang loves us too. High, low, anywhere we go on Chitty Chitty we depend. Bang Bang, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, our fine four-fender friend. Bang Bang, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, our fine four-fender friend.
Have you got any posters on your wall? When you were a kid, did you have film posters on your wall, or a student has film posters on your wall?
My most prized possession, which was taken down after I came back pissed from the pub, and I think I threw up my dad on the doorstep, was my absolute prized possession. Was on my wall was the poster for Eraserhead.
That is a gorgeous
And that
poster.
was because I had the haircut and the whole thing, because I could sort of fit it into the psychobilly rockabilly thing as well, so that tall flat top, and I used to wear those D-mob suits, and it was I had the Eraserhead poster, but that came down so did the hair. And then as punishment. But right here, right now, I don't know if I'll turn the camera.
Look at this,
Are you going to show this? Because up there on the wall, there's two posters, the Mean Streets.
I can see it, yeah.
And there's Come and See, which is an amazing Russian film, a war film by Ellen Klimov. And the Mean Streets one's actually signed by De Niro.
Oh,
which is nice. Yeah,
that is one of the best I've had on the show. That is extraordinary.
Isn't that great? And that is, it's one of my most favourite films. There's two of my most favourite films, but Mean Streets is really one of my favourite films, one of my top 10. And when I, you mentioned Plunkett earlier, when I did Plunkett, my Uncle Tony got me that poster from Bob De Niro because they'd worked together on The Fan and they knew each other, they were friends. And he knew I loved the film. So when I, first day on Plunkett McLean, I was given card from my dad and, people wishing me luck. And that was what I got from my uncle, was a Mean Streets poster signed by Bob De Niro, and it says, "To Jake, good luck, Bobby De Niro."
Oh,
isn't that good?
That is very, very good.
Hello. Where were you? I was around. Answer me, you son of a bitch. Where were you?
Charlie.
Shut up. Yeah, shut up. Therese, come on. We don't want to get Charlie in trouble here, do we? Don't be cute. You have me going crazy here. Yeah? What's the matter with you? What's the matter with you? You're about an hour and a half late, you know that? That's too bad. Michael's waiting for us. You forget or what? Your cousin was getting sick worrying about you. Better start calling up everybody. Yeah? That's too bad. Isn't that too bad? Huh, Teresa? So, kiddies, he's making any plans yet or what? When is he getting married? He's gonna get engaged?
Don't be smart, Johnny.
What do you mean? I ain't smart. I'm stupid, remember?
You heard me.
I'm a Struns. Remember, I'm so stupid you gotta look out for me, right? Right? Yeah.
Was there a film that changed your life, Jake? Either by watching it or being on the set or making it yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I thought about this because I saw some of the questions before, and I was really thinking about, because obviously there's a few films that feature in everybody's life if you're really into the film. I think the one that really woke me up, was a Werner Herzog film called Aguirre, Wrath of God.
Yeah.
And my dad screened it at the Coronet Cinema, which was a little tiny screening room in Soho. It was school holidays. Me and my brother Luke were bored at home. You know, I think it was a summer holidays. No, I think it was probably summer holidays. And, you know, he worked, mum worked. We were always at home. It was like, all right, you two come in this morning. I've got to screen this little film called The Geary Wrath of God. And this is, you know, 8-seater Rush's Theatre in a basement on Wardour Street. And we watched The Geary Wrath of God. And it literally changed my life. It changed my entire understanding of what cinema was. And I still watch that film. And Klaus Kinski playing a conquistador going in search of El Dorado.
I guess, is that what your dad wanted? Or did he just wanted to give you something else to do that wasn't, you know, playing?
No, I don't think he was trying to. I think it was an education. And I think we were lucky as kids because we had a dad who did something that artistic, and, you know, he was a filmmaker. And it was very much a part of our upbringing. But it was also because we were, you know, school holidays, he said, right, come in the office, you're going to start being a runner at 12, 13 and getting lunches for directors and film cans and, you know, going to editors and taking rushes to, you know, optical houses.
There's a disappeared world, the people with film canisters walking up and down Wardour Street.
Wardour Street, I know, isn't it? Now it's just coffee cups.
Even now you're lucky if it's anything, to be honest. The last 18 months have been so difficult for that area. I miss it, miss it so much.
Sad to see.
If I could take you to any film set back in time and you could drop in on one, and I know you're lucky as the sort of, you know, son of one of the greats, and you've probably been on some amazing film sets, but anyone back, you know, old Hollywood, silent movies, Bollywood, anywhere you want to go as a film set you can visit, either for just the one scene, famous scene being made, or just, you know, hang out for the entire shoot, where would you go?
One of the most perfect sequences, I think, in cinema, and I use it as an example of how a director can conduct, right? So you could compare a great director to a conductor like Leonard Bernstein, right? You can, because he's really in control of an orchestra. The film set, the film crew, it's like an orchestra. And Francis Ford Coppola in The Godfather 1 told this story. Michael Corleone goes to see his father in hospital. He's been shot. He thought he was going to die. It's the sequence where Michael Corleone goes to see his father and realizes he has to be moved. And then Enzo, the baker's son, shows up with the flowers to thank him. And because he's married to the girl that you know, that his father had gone to see The Godfather at the beginning. Anyway, this sequence is in which Michael Corleone protects his father, moves his father from his bed, his room, to another part of the hospital. And Enzo stands outside and puts his collar up and makes him smoke a cigarette. And he throws the flowers away, and he pulls his fedora down. And the rival gang go by, and they decide against coming in and killing the Godfather, right? Finishing him off. And that's like a sustained sequence where the tension is held for, it seems like 6 minutes long. At the end of which Sterling Hayden turns up, and he says, hold him, and Michael Corleone gets punched in the gut. Of course, we see what happens to Sterling Hayden, the corrupt cop. But that is one of the greatest sequences of sustained tension in the history of cinema. And everything is working in that. And I think that it's got, you know, Mark Brando's in there, Sterling Hayden, who's one of my heroes, you know, and a young Al Pacino. It's the most amazing, and one of the greatest films ever made. So that's
absolutely, and a really good choice in that film as well. Lots of people go for the different, you know, the final sequence or the shooting sequence or the wedding sequence, but that is a beautiful sequence there, because it sort of means it's a tiny bit, you know. It's the kind of what if, you know, if they hadn't moved.
It's pivotal. Everything pivots on that scene in that film. Everything changes. Michael Corleone becomes the Godfather.
Yes, absolutely. It's a shift, isn't it? He literal shifts the Godfather and takes the throne in a way. Brilliant choice. If you were doing some research for the film that you just made, Knebworth, did you look at other rock movies? Are there some great concert movies that you had in mind?
I mean, I love all the ones that a lot of people, I love Gimme Shelter and Monterey Pop, and, you know, that LCD Sound System one I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, that's good.
It's a great film, but none of those, not one of them. To be honest with you, what happened was a couple of days before or maybe a couple of days after I got the call from Alec, I was watching on Criterion on streaming with my son. We watched Frankenheimer's Grand Prix. And the opening of that film has this, remember it's got this, the Monaco Grand Prix, and it's all split screen. And that was the first thing I went, and I only do the split screen on one track on this film, on Oasis, on Knebworth. But that was the first thing. That was the launch point, and I kept going back to it. But no, when I realized that it had to be the fans that were speaking in this film, that you were really seeing it through the eyes of the fans, I went back all the way back pre-rock and roll to Bert Stone's Jazz on a Summer's Day. And that's what I kept looking at.
Do you know what? It came to mind. I thought, it can't be. I've just done a lot of work on Jazz on a Summer's Day. They made a little film for Curzon.
Have you really?
Yeah, about how women are now the sort of the voice of jazz. Which, you know, but we showed Jazz on a Summer's Day at a festival I did in Wales, that Green Man Festival, and we showed it there. And then I interviewed all the new young jazz generation, Kokoroko and Emma Jean Thackeray and Nubia Garcia, to say, well, you know, it was so blokish in that Bert Stone film. But I said to the camera guy, I said, you've got to get all the B-roll. It's all about the people and how they've changed the look.
Absolutely. No, it's
and yours is that as well. That's why I liked it, because there's just all the people. I just wanted to see all these people look like Noel Gallagher.
I kept going back there because, you know, of course, and also what's interesting about that film was it was the first time that rock and roll had been played at the Newport Jazz Festival when Chuck Berry played Sweet Little 16.
Yeah, absolutely. And it changed. The audience are a bit like, oh, I don't know. I've come to see. I've come to see Thelonious Monk. What's this? What's going on here? Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. But it wasn't. You concentrate on the transport, because they've got all the yachts in Jazz on a Summer's Day, and you've got all the kind of
and Jimmy Jeffrey. It's the Jimmy Jeffrey sequence. It's this is a film that I've obsessed by since I was very young. My mum showed it to me. That and The Girl Can't Help It. That was the two films.
Henry Grimes and Roy Haynes remain on stage to accompany one of the complete originals of music, a man who lives his music, a man who thinks his music, and it's possible to say that he lives and thinks of little else. We can't describe him exactly as daring, because I think he is unconcerned with any opposition to his music. He concerns himself with such elements as the quarter tone, which he doesn't find in our Western scale, so he'll strike two adjoining notes on the piano, two adjoining keys, to imply the missing note that's in between. Ladies and gentlemen, Thelonious Monk.
If you had a musical number of any film, like a musical moment, it could be a dance number in a musical, or just a moment that's scored by a great bit of music. What's your standout musical moment in the movies?
Oh God, I mean that's a big one, because there's many music and movements. It's got to be. Actually, I went, and this kind of ties into what was maybe the next question, but I went to see at the BFI just before COVID. I think in January of 2020, they did or was it just before Christmas? They had a Hollywood musicals season at the BFI, and they were, I don't know that they were remastered. They were digitally remastered. I think they can't be new prints. I doubt they'd be prints. It'd be remasters, wouldn't they?
4K scans.
4K remaster, and I'd never seen it on screen, but I went to see Singing in the Rain, and there are two numbers in that film. And it's not Singing in the Rain. There's Make 'Em Laugh.
Yes.
Donald O'Connor. It's like, you got to be kidding me. The dancing in this. And Gene Kelly. And then there's Moses Supposes. And these two sequences are two of the greatest. Maybe Hell's a Popping, the 6-minute Lindy Hop sequence and that. But those two, which is the Harlem music, and the Harlem dance. But the masculinity of Gene Kelly's performance, which was really what pushed dance, with Fred Astaire, of course, pushed dance forward, that a guy could dance. and express himself in that way is so wonderful as well. But Donald O'Connor is a really overlooked figure in Hollywood musicals, unless you're a real aficionado. And I when I saw their question, I was always like, it's not obvious. It's obvious to me. It's make them laugh.
the invention of it is just extraordinary. Every time he falls over and pops up and goes up the wall, but then he sits on a thing, and the hat is hilarious. The slap.
And there's
athleticism.
There's no CGI. There's no post effects. There's no enhancement. And there's no cuts.
Make 'em laugh, make 'em laugh. Don't you know everyone wants to laugh? My dad said, be an actor, my son, but be a comical one. They'll be standing in lines for those old honky-tonk monkey shines. Or you could study Shakespeare and be quite elite, and you could charm the critics and have nothing to eat. Just slip on a banana peel, the world's at your feet. Make 'em laugh, make 'em laugh, make 'em laugh.
I love your passion. Jake Scott, I'm going to have to leave it there, to be honest. It's brilliant. Congratulations on bringing back 96 to me. I could smell it again.
Thanks so much. Great talking to you.
That's it. Safe to say that I have now finished The White Lotus, did a double episode whammy binge of the final 2 episodes. You've just got to see it. That's one of the best little series I've seen. It's full of awful rich people just being awful. I don't really want another season of it. I quite like it as a one-off, but, if there was another one, yes, I'd definitely watch it. Of course I would. But you'd want those same guests back in a way. There are excellent performances all round. Jennifer Coolidge in particular. Alexandra Daddario. Do look out for her episode of Seen Any Good Films lately too. It was about a year ago. There's the pouty Sydney Sweeney. God, she's a piece of work. And then Murray Bartlett, an actor new to me. He's superb as Armand, the maitre d'. Just dive into the world of white privilege satire. White Lotus. Okay, I'll be back with another episode later in the week. I just had to bring you the hot review of The Many Saints of Newark, which is in cinemas from the 22nd of September, and to talk to Jake Scott, because the Oasis doc is in cinemas from the 23rd and the 24th of September. A really big cinema event, worth going to the cinemas for that. It'll be out on home entertainment in November, but until then, thanks to Jake Scott for joining us, and thanks to Kate Dawkins for editing it all together so quickly and so beautifully as ever. Let's go out with a 96 anthem, shall we?
Maybe I just